Resident Evil 4 was an evolution for gaming itself, not just because of the third person camera angle that inspired all the games, and definitely not because of the AI system that controlled the difficulty. Sort of like the director AI in Left 4 Dead. Maybe they were inspired by each other, but I highly doubt it. People didn't even know RE4 had that system until years later. Now, that aside, I am a true survival horror fan. Resident Evil 4 made me go play all the previous games. Of course, at the time, I was a child myself. So, the original trilogy were kind of behind me at that time, but it made me go back, which I loved. And when it comes to Resident Evil 5, people are divided. Not just because it's a very action game, it totally is, but we're going to talk about that later. But more so because it deviated from what made Resident Evil Resident Evil. Its survival horror, core, and mechanics. Its very soul and identity. What made it biohazard was no longer there. Resident Evil 5 has a very good story. It's a very good continuation. And I understand why Capcom did what they did. But doesn't mean it was right. They did it because of Call of Duty and all the action games that at the time were very popular. They forgot about their own audience and tried to pander to those, which is a huge mistake. Those people didn't come in. Well, most of them didn't. And the audience, well, you know how we felt. Doesn't mean that it didn't sell well. People say, oh, if Resident Evil 5 was so bad, then why did it sell so well? For those who don't know, it was one of the highest selling Resident Evil games out there. I'll tell you why. It was because of Resident Evil 4. Because of Resident Evil 4 and how great it was, people pre-ordered and bought 5 immediately. You want evidence? Look at Resident Evil 6. Every game pushes the next game forward. Resident Evil 5 was too action. That's why Resident Evil 6 took so much heat. Now, it doesn't mean that it didn't sell well, but it destroyed the franchise. Now, Capcom understood that. That's why they went to their horror roots, like Resident Evil 7, which is one of my favorite games out there. Oh my god. You guys should have seen me when I saw them go back to their roots. I was like a monkey on cocaine, jumping left and right. Anyway, don't want to talk about Resident Evil 7 now, but I could talk about that for hours. But let's leave that for another video. But today, I'm gonna distinguish between Resident Evil 4 and 5. People say, why are you so hard on Resident Evil 5? When you say Resident Evil 4 was so great, they were the same game. They were not the same game. Not at all whatsoever. Just because they have action, that does not make them the same game. Resident Evil 4 is drastically different. First of all, Resident Evil 4 needed to go more action. Not too much, but enough. It wasn't just about the action, it changed everything, and it needed to. The formula was becoming stale. The franchise was on the verge of exhaustion. And we all know as gamers that new evolutions are always needed in every game or franchise out there to keep the romance alive in a way. Now, I'm gonna give you examples. Resident Evil 4, it was action, but it stayed true to its horror roots. It wasn't too horror, but then again, the original games were not that much horror either. It kept to its roots, and it kept the action in check. Action must be a key and a component to the core system, which is horror and survival. And in Resident Evil 4, despite its beautiful and great action, it was just that. Now, I can talk about why Resident Evil 4's action is so deep and incredible, but I'm gonna leave that for Resident Evil 4 review. Please like and subscribe because it's coming. We're a new channel here, so all we have to give is some love and all you have to give is some likes. Now, cheesiness aside, we are very cheesy after all. Sort of like Jill's sandwich. I'm sure there's a cheese in there too. Resident Evil 5. Why it should be remade. The game is extremely crucial when it comes to the core and lore of the games and the whole franchise. And if you know me, which you probably don't, I take that very seriously. Now, we talked about why Resident Evil 4 and 5 are extremely different. 5 took the whole action route, forgot its roots, its horror, its survival, and went whole action. But it's still Resident Evil. It's still there. People could see it. That's why some people still enjoy it. It took it too far though, way too far for many people's comfort. Mine, yours, and probably everybody else. But that does not mean that the game is bad. It is not. It's a great game. It's not a great Resident Evil game. That's the problem. And that's what remakes are for. For to all those people who say RE5 should not be remade because of what it was and what it did to the franchise. By the way, people say Resident Evil 4 did that, but that's not true. It was a savior for not just only gaming industry, but for the whole franchise. Talk about it later. To them, I say Resident Evil 5 must be remade because that's what remakes are for. Do what the original didn't. Do better what the original did bad. By the way, I still believe Code Veronica should be remade first because, oh my god, a million reasons. Or mostly because of the same reason I just mentioned. Because it needs to be remade first. Because it is indeed the most in need of a remake. Wow, that's a good rap. Now, for those who are upset about Resident Evil 5 shouldn't be remade because of racial reasons, you're all a bunch of idiots. Seriously, you really are. People are the same. It doesn't matter. You don't complain when all these other people die in all these games. Most of them white or whatever. You don't care about that. Somehow you give a pass to others? I'm sorry. I won't give a pass to other people because I see them just as important as myself. I don't care about that stuff. Because I love them just as I love everybody else. And you guys, racist that you are, claim otherwise. And people are sick of your punk ass. Okay guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this news segment. It's not news per se, but I had to talk about it. And as you saw, we are not afraid of speaking the truth. That's what they want, and we're not that. We're all about freedom. We're all about the truth. That's why you should definitely subscribe and like our videos, because we love you guys and we do our job because of you, for you, and couldn't do it without you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later.